Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Film Frauds. Here, myself, Matt, my alter ego, Pirate Matt, and my two co-hosts, Mark.
Hello.
And Tyler.
Hello.
We have our completely unprofessional, 100% biased opinions on the movies of today, tomorrow, and yesteryear. But before we go into our actual review, we have a little call to action that Tyler wants to declare before we get into the actual discussion.
Yeah, first, we usually throw the call to action at the end, but we wanted to throw at the beginning to just ask you guys a question, or two questions rather. First, if you guys watch this video, just comment your favorite PTA movie. If you want to do a hot take, like my hot take is Hard 8 is in the top 4 PTA movies. That's my PTA hot take.
Oh, your hot take was that you hate There Will Be Blood.
Yes, I despise There Will Be Blood with all my passion. It's a 1-star movie. We just want to know what your favorite PTA movie is. But also, if you guys have any suggestions for us, things you want us to talk about, any feedback, anything at all, comment. You can you can subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. But if you're watching this on a podcast app, rate, follow. I don't really know how podcast stuff works, but yeah, just comment, rate us, do whatever you want to do. But we just want to get some interaction.
Write anything you want in the comment section.
Yeah, you can just write. You can insult me. You can just be like, he's clearly not reading all of these books because the pile got even bigger since the last video.
Yeah.
And don't put that into question. Don't worry about that.
Just assume he's read all of them. You know he hasn't.
Yeah, just don't ask me about this book. Yeah, just ignore our bookshelves and me and just focus on Matt. But yeah, let us know. Feedback, subscribe, all that normal jazz. But all right. Now when we get into our normal video, Mark, it's been a while. How's the cocaine factory? Hope it's good.
It's going well. We got several facilities now. It's doing great.
Okay, it's good.
So today we are talking about Paul Thomas Anderson's 2012 film, The Master.
2012.
Yep. And so this is the third third video in our series on Paul Thomas Anderson videos.
And the final of the
the final
series.
Yeah, for PTA.
Yeah.
This is the final one for part 1.
Yeah, we'll come back to him eventually.
Yeah. So the first one we did was Boogie Nights, and then we did Punch Drunk Love, and now we're doing The Master. And so The Master, if you haven't seen it, came out in 2012, and I just said that already. And it's about it takes place in 1950.
No pressure.
And it follows.
Doing great, champ.
Yeah, you're.
You keep cutting me off. I'm losing my mojo here. And it takes place in 1950, and it follows Freddie Quell, who's played by Joaquin Phoenix, and he's a World War II veteran, and he's sort of like a drifter, going from job to job. And one day he comes across a man named Lancaster Dodd, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Dobbs.
And what?
Lancaster
Hobbs?
Dobbs.
Dobbs? Did I say Hobb?
You said Dodd.
Dodd? Wait,
yeah,
what?
It's Lancaster Dodd. I wrote it down. I'm not a lunatic.
Wait, you just said Dodd. Wait.
I
You
thought
said Dodd's, Tyler.
No, it's Dodd. Wait, it's Dodd. I had it wrong. Crap.
You idiot. You idiot.
It was like last week Tyler thought a few dollars
You're
more
sabotaging
for
me.
a fistful of dollars. What is this kid talking about?
I'm losing my mind a little bit. Okay, Lancaster Dodd. Sorry.
So Freddie Quell, played by Joaquin Phoenix, meets Lancaster Dodd, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, and Lancaster Dodd is a religious leader of this new group, and sort of, in a way, brings Freddie Quell into the cause. And so the movie is this. There's many things going on in the movie, but one of the main things is this dynamic between Lancaster Dodd and Freddie Quell, and it's a great movie. And it's my second
synopsis.
that I'm telling you, I'm a good salesman.
Yeah.
So
I want Mark to be a film reviewer like Roger Ebert in the first 3 quarters of the actual art
him
review. It's just him describing the plot in real time as he's writing it.
And getting the names wrong too.
Lancaster Dobbs. I mean Dodd. Dobbs. I mean in 2012. I mean 2012.
Yeah.
4 stars. I stopped at the end.
Yeah. So this is my second time watching it, and I had a very different experience the first time I watched it. The first time I watched it,
watching it.
Well, it was a long day, and I didn't really know what I was getting into, and my eyelids happened to be closed for a small portion of the movie.
Yeah.
Your brain was still processing
everything though.
It was so good that I had to like block off the visuals, because it was just like it was too much to take in. So this is my second time watching it. I had a very different experience. I had actually a completely different experience, and so it's
Would you say
hard
the
for me to
differences were night
articulate.
and day?
They're night and day. What? Because I watched it during the day, and then the other time my eyes were closed, so it was night. And shut up. Yeah, whatever. Anyway,
We flummoxed Mark too much.
Yeah.
My mojo has been ruined. So how did you guys feel on your second watch of this movie? As this is your second time watching it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Matt, all you.
Okay. I like this movie a lot more my second time watching it. I'm actually super excited to talk about it. Like, this is probably the most excited I've been to discuss the movie on the show for like a couple of weeks now, because this movie's so
We
incredible.
did Aquaman last week.
Yeah, exactly. So this movie's incredibly complex. I think it's my second favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movie, behind Boogie Nights. I can't believe I haven't seen Phantom Thread, Magnolia, or Heart 8 yet, but rewatching it was definitely necessary for me to enjoy it more. I think there are a couple problems with it that keeps it from reaching the top tier for me, but overall, like, it's just a really great character study, and Paul Thomas Anderson is, one of the most unique directors and writers out there right now, and I could see myself like what I was talking about with Midsummer, where it's complex, but I have no intention of really rewatching it anytime soon.
Yeah.
Like, I can honestly see myself rewatching this movie again, like within the next few months, because it's really really good. I don't know, Tyler, what do you think?
This is so I've seen all of PTA's movies now. I watched There Will Be Blood a few days ago, and I think this is my favorite PTA movie, and I don't even think it's that close, honestly. Like, we've talked about Boogie Nights, and I'm pretty on record by saying how much I love Magnolia. But there's something about this movie that's so magnetic that I think puts it head and shoulders above the rest of PTA's movies. I don't think it's his best movie, though, and I think that falls to either Boogie Nights or Magnolia, because I do think this movie has some slight pacing issues where Boogie Nights and Magnolia are longer, but they just are, like, so tight and perfect despite their 3-hour length. This one is about 2 hours and 17 minutes in that, and it does feel its length. But there's something so magnetic and interesting.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
It's just like there are a few scenes in the movie that. So I've always heard this expression before that it's hard to like disassociate yourself with like an actor. Like you see Tom Cruise and you're like, any movie that's Tom Cruise. And I've always felt that. I've never been someone who's been like, that's not Ryan Gosling in a role. That's always Ryan Gosling. And this is one of those first times where I felt that for the first time, where Joaquin Phoenix is no longer Joaquin Phoenix, is Freddie Quell to me. And even past that, in other movies, I'm like, what's Freddie Quell doing? In like The Joker. I'm like, what's happening here? It's really
I
for
think
the
that
first.
applies to Philip Seymour Hoffman for me as well. Like, I
Exactly.
I didn't see him as Philip Seymour Hoffman. I saw him as Lancaster Dodd.
Yeah, and that's by and far the best part of this movie. Philip Seymour Hoffman and Joaquin Phoenix give some of the best performances I've ever seen in a movie. There is one scene in this movie, which we'll talk about a little bit, which is probably going to be our hallmark scene in some capacity. Can you guys hear me? You guys are okay.
Yes.
Sorry. There is one scene where the directing isn't even that great. The lighting's fine. But it's so focused on the characters and the actors that it doesn't matter. Like, nothing else in the movie matters. Not the score, not the directing. It's just their performances alone carry certain sections of this movie where things are a little bit kind of lackadaisical or not as great. This is PTA at his best for me. This is his best written script. I think this is visually his best looking movie. The cinematography on this movie is amazing. And I think this also has the best score of any, like, consistent score out of any PTA movie. Boogie Nights is close, and Magnolia is up there too. But
yeah, I'd have to agree with you fully, Tyler. I haven't seen Phantom Thread or Inherent Vice, but I'm like pretty confident when I say that this is my favorite PTA movie.
yeah,
It was Punch Drunk Love, but it's hard to articulate into like just how incredible this movie is. I guess for me, again, we talk about magnetic and whatnot, but there's just this. I don't know. PTA has this, like, his movies have this energy, and they seem to all have like a different sort of energy. I mean, Boogie Nights just keeps going, and Hard Eight's has got quite an energy, a lot of highs and lows, and same with Punch Drunk Love. I mean, what's his name, Barry Egan. It's sort of Barry Egan and Freddie Quill. There's definitely some similarities where they're both very unpredictable.
Yep.
And that makes for such interesting characters, and you're just like, what the hell are they going to do next? And on the topic of like the cinematography, this is like one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about it, but just like the blues and the greens and just all these light colors, it's just incredible to look at. And
there are a few directors when you watch their movies, then you watch other movies, and you're like, God damn, these movies look like shit.
yeah.
PTA is one of those directors where you watch him and then watch another movie, and you're like, things just are ugly now. You're like, I've seen like Pinnacle fucking put in front of a camera. It's really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, like with PTA, like if I hadn't known this was PTA had directed this, I would be able to tell just from watching it.
Yeah.
Just
From
hearing this
from the
energy.
dialogue, I think.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying about every movie has different energy to it. I think they all have very similar directing styles, but PTA is just a master of screenplays. He's a master of character work. He can really every character feels so different from across all of his movies. I can't think of a single character that's similar. And even with like different actors, even with the same actors playing different characters in different movies, they all feel so distinct. Like Philip Seymour Hoffman in Boogie Nights is totally different from Philip Seymour Hoffman in The Master. And
Whose
it's
dog
amazing.
is that?
What?
Whose
Not
dog
mine.
is that?
Oh,
That's
that's
not.
my neighbor's dog.
That's your neighbor.
Can you hear that? Yeah.
Yeah.
They're so annoying. I guess the door. Is it bad?
No. It was
No,
fine.
it stopped.
Okay.
It was just funny.
Yeah, it's like yeah.
Give us your impression.
What?
Give us
Yeah,
your impression right now.
I just did it.
Oh, do it again.
No, I'm
Okay,
not doing it
just
again.
go.
Here,
No, I'm
sorry.
a one-trick pony.
All right, keep
But-
going.
Yeah, so as I was saying, he's just really good at at writing different characters, and I think that's like where the different energy comes from. And I think that the character work in this movie is what drives it along.
Yeah.
I
think Paul Thomas Anderson said that, like, I think you told me, Tyler, that he tries to write every day. And
Yeah.
I've also seen that or read that he's not married to his script. Like, he'll write stuff, but he'll give the actors room to work.
yeah.
And you can sort of feel that in this movie, especially just Freddie, his quirks and his mannerisms, just his like nervous laughter and his emotive responses to other people. It's just like, it feels like Joaquin is channeling something, and it definitely feels like it's not like written in the script like Freddie laughs or something.
Yeah.
There's a definite, like, PTA is such an encompassing director that it's very much his style. That when a big complaint of mine about Punch Drunk Love, it felt like it was PTA adapting to Adam Sandler, and I didn't like that because it felt like it was less PTA, and I think you feel that a lot in the runtime of the movie for Punch Drunk Love. But in this one, it feels like Joaquin Phoenix is like, I will do whatever you want, whenever you want it. Just I am your like vehicle, and I feel like you can feel that a lot of the times. Like there's the scene later in the jail cell where it's just like you're just like, Jesus, like how is this, like you can't believe that this is like an actor. Like it really feels like there is no one who would be willing to put their body through this. And I don't know what Joaquin Phoenix is. I don't know much about him as a person, but does he have like the way he moves, like his body is so, I've never seen anything like it before. His like, he like can like,
He's like hunched over.
Yeah, he like
Yeah.
misshapes his shoulder. Like, so his traps look massive. And it's just like this.
But he's
like,
bony, like he's skinny.
Yeah, and I've never seen anything like that before, where his own like physical, like he changes like so much of his body, and you get a lot of that in the Joker. And I get it. I don't want to talk about the Joker with Joaquin Phoenix, but if there are two Joaquin Phoenix
Why do you want to talk
performances,
the Joker?
I don't shut up. But basically, like this stands above. I think this is Joaquin Phoenix's best performance in his career. I don't think anything really comes close to it. Like as good as he is in the Joker, this is just on another level. I think that jail scene really kind of captures just like the physical attributes of his acting as well.
His best acting was in Inherent Vice.
And oh yeah,
What a baby looks like.
it's like and then, yeah, yeah. Oh okay. Oh sure. Mark, you'll get it one day.
Yeah,
I'll
we'll
get
get
it
it
one
one day.
day.
One day, Mark, you'll get that Inherent Vice joke. But Joaquin Phoenix is at his absolute best here, and same with Philip Seymour Hoffman. And it's a shame because Philip Seymour Hoffman's someone who I hadn't watched much of. I watched him in MI3. I'm like, that guy's really good. And I didn't really see him in anything else. And then I watched this, and I'm like, man, I wish he was in more movies.
I saw him in Catching Fire. It's like,
that's
this guy's
right.
like such a good actor.
Yeah.
Then he died. I was like, I didn't really bother me at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, now retroactively, I'm like, man, this guy is just brilliant.
Yeah. Mark, you're a big Synecdoche, New York guy.
Oh my God.
What's
That-
better, him in Synecdoche or him in this? Philip Seymour Hoffman, that is.
That is a really tough question. That is really tough. I don't know.
You don't? Okay.
They're both amazing. I can't even compare the two. I guess it comes down. I mean, like, I can't like be a good judge of acting, but if it were to come down to like my favorite performance from him, it would be The Master.
Yep.
But I think in Synecdoche, New York, Philip Seymour Hoffman brings this level of subtlety that is just so rare, I guess you could say, in actors. And but yeah, and like in PTA movies, he's like sometimes like the biggest highlight. Like think about Punch Drunk Love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. And then
forgot
in
it, yeah.
Boogie Nights, he plays a small role, but it's like really powerful.
Yeah.
And he's also in Hard Eight for like one scene.
Yes, he is.
And
But
Big
he's,
Lebowski, which is on a PTA movie, but he's funny in that.
So why talk about it?
Yeah.
It's not
'Cause
PTA.
he's a good
it's
actor.
a PTA video.
We're just saying he has a good good
Oh.
talent.
Yeah.
Dude.
Was he in Charlie Wilson's War?
I haven't seen Charlie Wilson's War.
Didn't you see that, Tyler?
I've never seen it, no. But I was looking
Oh.
at, so basically this movie, because we've basically been, I just want to clarify, this movie was nominated for only 3 Oscars. It was nominated for Best Actor, Joaquin Phoenix, Best Supporting Actress, Amy Adams, Best Supporting Actor, Philip Seymour Hoffman, and it won 0 Oscars.
That is
Joaquin
a
Phoenix
shame.
lost to Daniel Day-Lewis in Lincoln. Matt, you've seen Lincoln. I don't care about watching Lincoln.
I've seen Lincoln.
Is Daniel Day-Lewis better in Lincoln than Joaquin Phoenix is in The Master?
It's been a while since I've seen Lincoln, but I would say that Joaquin Phoenix is better in The Master.
I saw Lincoln a long time ago. I think when it came out. I
Yeah, I
remember
saw it
there was
in
like
theaters.
one specific scene where I was like, "Hey, this guy's acting right now," and it was when Lincoln was like, "We need to do this now."
Yeah.
Remember that scene?
Yeah.
And I was like, "Hey, that's acting."
You're like, whoa.
Acting
Yeah.
was good.
And by the way, Paul Thomas Anderson was not nominated for Best Directing. The 5 nominations were David O. Russell for Silver Linings Playbook, Lincoln, Steven Spielberg, Beast of the Southern Wild, Ben Zeitlin, Amour, Michelle Haneke, and Life of Pi, Ang Lee. Ang Lee won for Best Directing in Life of Pi. We saw,
didn't see
Mark, Life of Pi was the first movie we ever saw together. And the fact that
Wow,
Ang Lee won
right.
for that, Life of Pi is a good movie, but that's baffling. Like the fact that Paul Thomas Anderson was not nominated is one of those things you look back like 7-8 years later and you're like, that's just wrong. Like this is the best
wrong.
movie of 2012.
Oh
This
yeah,
is-
it's
this
one of
is
the best
also-
movies of the decade, in my opinion.
Yeah.
This was one of our, Matt, when we were making our best of the decade list, this was on my list of asterisk movies where we basically like, these movies I've only got a chance to see once. It was Silence and the Handmaiden.
Yeah.
I'm like, if I got a chance to see these more, these might be on the list. And after seeing The Master again, The Master being one of my top 5 movies
Really?
of the decade, it's that, like, this should also be, Matt, I read your Letterboxd review and you actually hit the nail on the head that you compared this to Burning. And that basically was like, yeah. And if you watch your videos, you know that Burning is my 3rd favorite movie the entire decade. And it should become of no surprise how much I love this movie because in terms of pacing and character study and focus, they're basically like identical. They're the same types of movies and they're the movies that I love.
Yeah.
Movies that don't give the audience answers. And I don't think this is one that necessarily has these big mysteries, but it lets the audience kind of like figure things out along the way. Like kind of like characters move, like there's no set time frame in this movie. And one thing that really stands out is the fact that we learn like later on that years have passed through the events that we're seeing.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like figuring that out. And it's a really like wonderful way to like see like a community build and growth and like watch the expansion of the cause. Because we see it on this ship and then we see it larger at that house. And at the end, we see it even bigger as a school. And you get really the sense that years have passed. But you don't really learn that. And you kind of have to piece it all together. And Paul Thomas Anderson, and what I love about his movies is he does not hold the audience's hands. He makes you pay attention. So when I watch this movie, I throw my phone across the room. And whenever I have to watch a PTA movie, I just don't go anywhere near my phone, which is tough to do at home, as you guys are probably aware. But you kind of need to for these kind of stuff. Because if you miss
Tyler
Like,
had all the lights on when he watched the movie.
yeah, I was too scared. But there's like the first time I ever watched this movie. You guys are mean.
Joaquin Phoenix scares him.
Joaquin Phoenix his like his body, but when Joaquin Phoenix drives away on the flats in the motorcycle, I had no idea like why or like how many like time had passed. I was really unclear about that. And this time I paid attention and I was like, oh, he disappears on the motorcycle and then that's they don't see him
Last time
again
they
for
see him.
years. Yeah, for
Yeah.
years. It's wonderful. This movie is just amazing. I love everything about this movie, honestly.
So let's talk about our first viewing versus our second viewing.
Yeah.
For me,
You were asleep.
I was asleep. No, I think I was going and expecting one type of movie.
Mark is like, the picture was like all black for some reason. I couldn't like hear any of the dialogue. It was like really weird.
I could hear the dialogue, but like for some reason the screen was black. Weird. Anyway, I think I think when I first watched The Master, it was earlier this year, and I think I'd only seen Punch Drunk Love and There Will Be Blood up until that point. And so I was expecting one type of movie. Maybe something like, that got like that fast paced or like energy that Punch Drunk Love has, or like that sort of shock factor that you get in There Will Be Blood. And, it's like I think, Matt, we've talked about in the past, like, sometimes you have a hard time connecting with Paul Thomas Anderson movies. It's like it feels like a little hollow.
Yeah.
That's how I felt on the first viewing of this.
Yeah.
On the second viewing, did not feel that completely at all. I think I was surprised at like at times how funny this movie was, and charming and heartwarming, also sad and tragic. It was like a whole flux of emotions, and it really caught me off guard. And I think, after having watched it like last night, I think like these are the kind of movies that like remind you like why we watch movies and why we love them. It's just amazing on every aspect. And I'm just surprised at how much my appreciation for this went up on my second viewing.
Oh, there goes Matt. See, Mark, so this is why I love it, because I didn't get anything sad or tragic about this movie in the slightest. I think this is actually
maybe tragic wasn't the right word, but like,
but not even like sad.
Somber.
I don't even get that. I view this movie as like very optimistic in terms of like viewing it from Freddie Quell's perspective. Like, I don't think this movie is sad in any regards. And one thing that PTA movies
I disagree.
Disagree. Okay. Oh, I love this. One thing I love about PTA movies is, in a lot of like these big Hollywood movies, you get a giant character growth. Like, they start one way, they start one area and end on the other, and that's just not realistic. And that's one reason why I love the movie like Manchester by the Sea, because that movie ends with a broken character, or starts with a broken character, and he only ends the movie taking the steps in the right direction. He doesn't start broken and end fixed. He starts broken, and by the end of the movie, he's broken but with a path to become better again. And in this movie, it's very much the same, where we see him as he doesn't have, like, Freddie Quell's character has not a super clear progression of development from the start to beginning, but he does have development. And that's what I love about this movie is it's not in your face. He's not like, I'm not good, and then now I'm good. He's like, I'm not good, but now I'm better in a different. It's masterful. I really do think, like, I love these type of movies because they are realistic. And again, I say it's like every time the movie's like this, it just feels very like human. It's a very human and realistic way to track progression. People don't go from this to that. They go from this, and then it takes a long time.
Yeah.
Matt, you disagree though. You think this movie is very...
I'm gonna echo Mark's point that he made before, where about the second viewing, how it changed. So, like, obviously, when I watched The Master before any of you, I watched it a couple of years ago for the first time, and I watched it, and I'd seen like Inherent Vice, Punch Drunk Love, and like as I was saying, I was having a hard time connecting really with PTA movies. Same thing with The Master. It's like, this is incredibly well acted, really beautiful, but man, I just like did not connect with any of this at all. And that definitely changed a lot in the second viewing. Except for, I'm going to talk about a scene later on that I think is both amazing and also kind of a wet fart at the same time.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but we'll get to that. What was it going with
this?
So I think it is, when you said about Freddie,
I
think that there is some optimism in that. I'm not debating that. You said the movie's entirely optimistic, and I disagree with that.
Okay.
I don't think Philip Seymour Hoffman is an optimistic character, and I don't think his arc is optimistic.
I'm sorry. I meant that from the perspective of Freddie. Like, the movie's like an optimistic... That Philip Seymour Hoffman is a different...
I could see, like... I could see Freddy's definitely changing for the better.
Yep.
But like, there's like that scene where Amy Adams says that you look terrible at the same time, where he definitely looks noticeably thinner, which is weird.
We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, because I have a lot to say about that scene, but
Yeah.
I knew it. Yeah, I
because
knew it.
but I mean, yeah, I look at the Burning comparison. I think that this movie feels more cinematic than Burning. Like Burning just literally just feels like you're just following these people.
Yeah.
It's like it's just so incredibly realistic and gray.
Yeah.
But like this movie, I want to talk a little bit about like the interactions between Freddy and Dodd, Lancaster Dodd, because those are my favorite scenes in the like throughout the whole movie. Not a big surprise, but
Yeah.
there's like this really weird immaturity to Freddy. He's and Lancaster's kind of like the father figure to him in a way, but like just like the way he acts. Like this movie, in some review, or I think it was a review, like maybe Red Letter Media or something, when they talked about it, they're like, Paul Thomas Anderson's the only one who can make a guy fart, or saying he wants to fart in someone's face, like, and make it like a legit Oscar caliber movie.
Yeah.
So like his character's so deep, and like I want to say that it's optimistic for him, but at the same time, I somewhat struggle with his maturity, and I don't really know it's like 100% optimistic at the end.
So can I just lay this claim out? Or can I just lay it out right there?
No, I'm going to
Okay.
Mark.
Okay, Mark. So when I watched this movie, so the first time I watched it, I loved it. I'm pretty on record of saying how much I loved it, and then the second time I watched it, I loved it even more. But the rose-colored glasses did come off, and I can acknowledge there is some slight pacing issues. I think in a little bit of the second half.
I would agree with that.
I think there is some like legitimate like pacing issues. I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as There Will Be Blood, which is like a hot take by itself.
I'm excited to see what you have to say about it.
Yeah. But the thing is though, I view this movie. So when I watched it the first time, like a lot of it was like it's super complex, it's blah blah blah. And I watched it. And I think I watched it through a very small lens where I was watching it. I'm like, this is a movie about a guy trying to find some self-acceptance find some place. He's lost, kind of like a lost dog. And try to find that,
there's like some wartime critique in it as well, like people, like soldiers being brought back into the U.S. and not being able to integrate back into society effectively.
And I watched that, and I was like, okay, and that's how I kind of watched it again the second time, and I kind of feels like the entire movie is like that. We're in a constant like this movie's a constant battle between Philip Seymour Hoffman trying to analyze Lancaster Dodd is trying to analyze why Freddie Quell is the way that he is. And it's this weird, like, dichotomy. Like, we hear that at the end line where Philip Seymour Hoffman's like, if you ever find out how to live without, like, serving a master, like, let me know. You'd be the only person in the history of the world to ever do that. And that line unlocked a lot of the movie for me a little bit towards the end, because we see the title of the movie is The Master. And it kind of was like, okay, so there is a fight here. Philip Seymour Hoffman is trying to Lancaster Dobbs, is trying to achieve, I feel like, in a sense, what Freddie Quell is, this like free spirit and not constrained to like society's like conventional roles. And Freddie Quell is trying to find a place and accept himself. And it's this weird clash, but ultimately Freddie kind of prevails, because we see at the end that Lancaster Dobb is kind of at the whims of his wife. And Amy Adams,
she's the master.
She's the master of it. And we see that, and we see like, okay, so his entire efforts have been fruitless, but Freddie Quell, yes, the shot at the end is where he started off, but there's this like sense of optimism because he goes to see Dolores, and he is like he has accepted this peace. He has moved on. He goes past Lancaster Dodd because he separates himself, and we see that he has this sense of self-acceptance and a sense of who he is. And from that lens, I view this as a wholly optimistic movie. It's this journey of someone searching for a place, but ultimately ends with realizing that he needs to be okay with himself first before he can kind of join that. And at the end, we see that he is happy and he is complacent with who he is. He has gone past that need for like criticizing himself. Well, Philip Seymour Hoffman is the complete opposite. And it's that clash in the middle when they meet that I find this movie so captivating. And when I say optimistic, I mean from Freddie Quell's perspective.
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys think. Like, do you guys agree?
You certainly make a good case.
Yeah. Can we talk about like what the master is? Because I have some thoughts on that.
Go for it.
So like, I guess I think it's a little like a little one-dimensional to say like, oh, the master was actually Amy Adams the whole time. I think that they're interesting. I mean, we're obviously you just said that. Like, I'm not saying that's the only way you view it. I'm just saying that.
Yeah.
That's how we started off. Because I've seen other reviews saying like, oh, like the thing is like, oh, the Amy Adams is the master. That's a big twist. I'm not saying that. I've seen that in other reviews.
Yeah.
But I think that what is interesting about like what the master is within obviously Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, because there's a codependence between him and Freddy, between him and his followers.
Yeah.
Because at least from what I got from Philip Seymour Hoffman's performance is that there's like this need to be like, loved by everyone in the room. Like the first big example was when it's not even a big example, it's pretty small, but the first example that stood out to me was during the wedding when he said like he's like, I'm going to bed. And he goes, no, don't everyone get up at once.
Yeah.
Like he was kind of like you know, throwing shade at them for not like actually saying goodnight to him or anything.
Yeah.
So there's that little like kind of like he's a little like peeved off there. And then just the way he interacts in large crowds, like how like animated he is and stuff, and how he just loves to be the center of attention. I get this feeling that like, yeah, he is the master, but also he's totally dependent on receiving the affection of his followers.
Well, that's the criticisms of cults. Like that's a whole light the movie tries to shine on. Like, it's like Scientology as a whole, because this movie is very like a subtle way of.
Tom Cruise.
Don't tell Tom Cruise. Yeah, I saw by the way that clip, Mark, you sent us of PTA.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, why would you ask that if you already know the answer, pig fuck? That's a great line, by the way. I laughed a lot that second time, but no, I think that's just like, I think that's pretty like evident in how like this movie's a shaded dig at all things Scientology, how it's just like, it's all a big sham. And this mythical figure is like this broken and desperate and insecure person.
Yeah.
You see that later on when his work gets criticized and he kind of lashes out. He's like a deeply insecure human being.
Talking about the scene where Moore, the guy whose last name is Moore, is like, excuse me.
Oh no, I'm talking about the one later on with Laura Dern.
Oh,
comes in is like, why'd you change stuff? Like, should it? And he gets mad. He's like, I don't know. And we see like that, like the facade really break that time.
Yeah.
But the master in this one, I always view it as like society. Like it really is like it's this constant need of Philip Seymour Hoffman. You're right, has to have the loyalty and the love of his supporters, and that's his society. But Freddie Quell is at like the whims of like a society constantly telling him like you have to be in this role and you have to do that, and he ends up with a department job, and he kind of breaks a little bit there, and it's just like this constant battle. And I think Freddie ultimately prevails against everything at the end. He becomes who he wants to be, and that's why I like adore this movie so much.
Yeah, Mark, you have anything to say about it?
But on that note, not particularly.
Okay.
I think you guys sort of voiced all the opinions I hold. I think what I wanted, I know we're sort of skipping what I presume to be the end, because I know, Matt, you were talking about the wet fart scene. Yeah. I have a suspicion that it was the slow boat to China scene.
Yeah, well, the slow boat to China scene is what makes it amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Please tell us your.
So obviously, the slow boat to China scene is like that line is amazing, and it it basically, as Paul Thomas Anderson said in an interview, that this is a romance movie, and that 100% confirms that for me. Yeah. Like it's basically a romance, and it's phenomenal. My problem comes with the Amy Adams and Joaquin Phoenix relationship, the Freddie Lowndes and what's her name, Peggy relationship, and like their final conversation just did nothing for me. Like it just kind of like she just leaves the room and she's just irrelevant. I get like I can see why people do like it or just not bothered by it, but I was just waiting. It just seemed like it needed to have a little more like gravitas to it or something. That may have contradicted like elements of the movie, the more realistic parts of it, but just for me, it just like I didn't understand what it was there for.
I do. I think I do.
Okay.
I think that scene, that last bit, that harshness, that cruelty that she shows, I think that sort of cements the idea that she's the master. But
that's like so. That's just so boring to me.
It's okay. I don't think it was. I don't think it was boring. Maybe it's boring because it's very self-evident.
Yeah.
But the way that scene is framed is you get this big room, Lancaster Dodd's in the middle behind the windows. He's at the big desk, and then like off to the side, literally in the shadow, is her.
Yeah.
The secret master sort of. And it's a little on the nose. It makes it the idea of her being the master a little more clear. But I didn't really have a problem with that part. I thought it was very harsh and brutal. And I think it was like a good way of fleshing out Freddie's just complete indifference to everybody else. He was like, he just laughs it off.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
I disagree in a sense where I don't. So I watched that movie, and you're right. This is very much a romantic like clash of two like entities between Lancaster Dodd and Freddie Quell, and I never really viewed the relationship between Freddie Quell and Amy Adams' character as any importance to the story as a whole, because we don't really get a lot of development between them. In a sense, where she is a part of his training to try to indoctrinate him into the cause and to better himself, but they don't have like this emotional and psychological relationship like Philip Seymour Hoffman and Joaquin Phoenix do. So when ultimately she just kind of casts them aside, I feel like that's pretty emblematic of her relationship as a whole to him, where she feels like she's helping him at the beginning out of a duty to the cause, but then she looks at him and there's like he's like, why are you here? Oh, I'm just here to take pictures. She's like, okay, clearly he's not ever going to be a part of us. And then that's it. She doesn't need like this big like, you are blah and this is what you mean to me. I feel like it's just kind of like he was just never really important to her, and
Yeah.
she was just another one of the members. So having her like be off to the side and just it's like, but because that's not the point of the movie. I feel like I could
This
be
is
wrong.
disappointing because, like in that same, obviously in that same room, there's so much complexity between Joaquin Phoenix and Philip Seymour, and between Freddie and Lancaster, that personally I just felt disappointed by
Yeah.
the interaction between Freddie and Peggy, because I feel like Peggy's character is just, oh, I'm actually in charge the whole time, and that's kind of the extent of it.
Yeah.
And it gets personal, just like it just kind of just it was like that's all it was.
Yeah.
Like then she leaves, and then you get the really great scene between Lancaster and Freddie, but like it just seemed like it was just one level below the complexity that I desired from that. And I'm not even asking for, I don't think they need to have like a huge complex relationship in order to get to that next level. It can be about like the cult itself or something. I don't even really know like what I'm looking for. It just felt
felt like
somewhat
you're missing
contrived
something.
for like that. It felt like an ooh like kind of twist, like she's bossing him around kind of thing. And it's not. I'm sounding more negative about it than I mean to, but it just what prevents it from being like an A movie to me is that I just wanted more from that.
Yeah, I can't because again I can't disagree with that in any capacity. But I also, it just works for me. Like I never view it as important, and that's how I just never view this movie as like Amy Adams is a key part of it all. At the end, it's just like, okay, that's because I've already laid my forward. I'm like, okay, because the movie's a battle between Philip Seymour Hoffman and Joaquin Phoenix. In the end, we see that Philip Seymour Hoffman has lost the battle because he now serves under someone else when his goal.
If he ever even won the battle in the first place.
Yeah, if he never even won the battle. I just never view the movie that way. And maybe again, I watch it in like a few months for a third time. I'm like, oh, you're right, Matt, actually. And then I give you a message, and then you tell me like, "Ha, suck it, bitch." And then I'm like, okay, because that's how we interact. So,
I think. Well, before I get to this point, I just want to like sort of highlight what I just observed over this discussion is just like how up for interpretation this movie is.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. And what I wanted to talk about, I don't feel like we've discussed it, or maybe it might have been my experience, but just like Phillips Lancaster Dodd at the beginning was talking about like bringing humans to the next step. We're not a part of the animal kingdom, we're above it or something. Yep. And I think that part comes when all those people have those like headsets on and they're listening to him speak and they're just writing it down.
Yep.
And then
Freddie's
Freddie pulls this down. And then he goes, "Do you want to fuck?"
Yeah.
totally like an animal.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful. And he's just like unpredictable, like an animal.
And Lancaster refers to Freddie as his little animal as well, which is interesting.
Yeah. And so those are like the parts where they're just so funny. It's kind of like a.
The part that made me laugh the most was like their first interaction, where like Lancaster's was like
do this, and he's like, no, I'm not.
He's like, no, because he's
you know what that means.
Like, Joaquin Phoenix has he always puts his like hands on his hips, but like on the ends of his hips. Yeah. He's like, no.
Yeah.
I think so. I just want to throw out that I don't watch movie scenes often. Like I don't go out on my own and watch a scene outside of the movie, but I've actively looked up that first questioning scene from where they're just like, all right, you can't blink. If you blink, it's an infringement and we'll restart from the beginning. I've actively watched that like 5 or 6 times out of my own. There's sometimes where I'm like, I want to feel inspired. And I'll
Yeah.
watch that for a second and be like, oh.
And you get inspired by Scientology?
No! I start writing
Tyler.
down. I'm like,
Wait, he's a Tom Cruise fan.
I'm a Tom Cruise fan.
Uh-oh.
Don't look at these books. Don't look at these areas. It's just my teaching. I'm just drawing
you.
circles. It's like, that's me. I act like that is one of the most engaging scenes I've ever seen in a movie in a long time. I don't think I've ever just I've sat there and it's 7 minutes long and I blink and it's done. I'm like, oh, I want more of that. And I think it's just the focus on Joaquin Phoenix's face as he struggles not to blink.
Yeah.
And
he's totally blinking though.
Oh, he blinks once. Yeah, he absolutely blinks. But because he also blinks at a certain point where Philip Seymour Hoffman is getting information about him, so he keeps
There's literally
going.
He's going like this a lot, and then
well, he never directly closes it, but there's one time his eyes shut. I was watching this. I know this. I've seen the scene so many times.
It's pretty dark though. I'm pretty sure he definitely blinked more than once.
But there's a few times when he slaps himself, you just feel the impact of that.
Yeah.
It's oh my god, and the veins start to pulse on his head, and you're giving all these answers, and you're learning all about him, and it's just it's the perfect way to dump exposition about a character while also giving the dynamic between the two main characters and the kind of the conflict we're having already. It's wonderful. I love it. I love everything about that scene.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, do you guys want to just talk about, I feel like there's a lot of it's not exactly Hallmark moments, but shots that are just so impressive.
Go for it.
Felt that,
Let's go for it.
I think for me, and this is not something I came to appreciate after I listened to Robert Eggers and Ari Aster talk about this, and they talk about the close-up and how Ingmar Bergman was the master of the close-up, and some directors today are trying to get their own version of the close-up right, and they specifically talk about the master and how PTA was sort of I don't want to say trying to do a Stanley Kubrick-esque close-up, but they're talking about how he has his own thing going on. And it's sort of evident in The Master where you get that interrogation scene where just close-ups of Amy Adams and Joaquin Phoenix. And
Amy Adams? Which one?
Peggy and Freddie Quill. And
wait, which interrogation scene are you talking about? The first one or
there was two, both of them. They're both close-ups.
Okay.
And one's a little bit closer to the face than the other, but it just sort of, I don't know, I'm a sucker for those shots, and it makes it so incredible just to see it. And one other shot that I loved was Freddie getting chased out because he's being accused of poison.
Yeah.
And you see, he runs out of the building, and all those guys fall, and then the camera pushes out into the field, and then you get that tracking shot of him. And it's just
they put there's that scene later where Philip Seymour Hoffman and Joaquin Phoenix are riding the bike where they're going fast, and they're that's actually there's a point where Joaquin Phoenix and there's a bump and he goes up a little bit. I'm like, oh Jesus, they better not kill
can you imagine me shattered his leg and they had to delay production for months.
Well, it's just you can see how fast the funniest part was it made me laugh when Philip Seymour Hoffman's writing it and he just looks very unnatural because he's hunched over a little bit.
Yeah.
And you're just oh my god.
I laughed when Joaquin Phoenix really build up speed and his hard cuts to Lancaster's face. He's going really fast.
He's like, Freddie, and you're just you're you can't hear him.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mark, the close-up. I mean, the close-ups in this are just the ultimate example of how much of a character study this movie is. They just went everything else is subservient to, not subservient, but second to these characters. And this is not a movie that is style. This is a movie that's about substance. And if PTA was I'm going to make this movie, but I can only make it if it's the quality was down, but the character, it's it doesn't matter how great this movie looks. And I know that's weird to say. It just adds to it because this movie has such a base level of excellency to me, just with the character work alone. I just can't beat this.
And I just want to mention one more thing about the close-ups. It's I think for a close-up to have any sort of weight is you got to earn it.
Yeah.
Think about the Kubrick movies where you get the Kubrick stare, the Kubrick close-up, and it has just a ton of weight to it.
Yeah.
I guess you can make a counter argument to what I just said with The Clockwork Orange because that movie literally starts out with a close-up. But specifically the close-up scene, the first interrogation scene, Paul Thomas Anderson did that on the fly. They were on set, and he was he had this it popped into his head, this idea of this interrogation scene, and he wrote it out real quick, and then he got Joaquin Phoenix and Amy Adams to come from their trailers, and they shot it.
He was feeding Amy Adams the questions as it was filming, right?
Wait,
Oh,
Amy,
I don't-
the one where where she's asking him what
Which is like, oh, look at my eyes, turn them blue.
Oh, okay,
right?
yeah, and turn
Yeah.
them black, yeah, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
he was feeding them to her like on the fly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Damn.
on the fly.
Oh, that's
I have
awesome.
like one. I have like one more talking point. If you
Yeah,
guys
sure.
want to indulge me.
No.
So I watched a few interviews, and there's like this general like theme where people who are interviewing PTA, and PTA himself are saying that he treats like the cult and the characters in this movie like with a lot of like respect, and like kind of like respect, not like he's not being cynical towards it. And I kind of disagree with that,
Interesting.
especially with Philip Seymour Hoffman with Lancaster Dodd. I think he's obviously, as we've got into earlier, he's obviously a fraud. I don't know. What did you guys think of that? Did you think that he was being like kind to these people, or?
So I disagree 100%. I think they treat this cult and these people with such an utmost respect because typically in these kind of movies, you expect them. Let's take a look at Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the Manson cult. That kind of is the Manson family. And ultimately, they kind of treat them as a farce in that movie. And that's a different point to kind of rewrite history and to take the gravity of the situation away. But there's always this decision to treat these people like a cult because we have such a negative connotation of the word with a cult as kind of like these bumbling and these bumbling fools who don't have a single thought for themselves. But we actually see that this cult recruits people like Freddy who don't have a place to go and who have been like brought in by this sense of community and this charismatic and magnetic leader who gives them and imbues them with this kind of sense of purpose because they're all this lovely, like they're this community of people that really try to like bring themselves up. Like there's never like this, like there's no inner conflict between them. There's no like, we don't see any like issues. There's only that one example where we forgot that who plays his son in this movie? Jesse Plemons. He's in this movie and he's like, all this is fake, right? That's the only time we get like any like that and Laura Dern, but that's the only time we get really
that.
Any,
and then
like,
also when the publisher guy.
Publisher's not part of the cult though. He's just a publisher.
But he's also calling it out.
He's just calling it out, but it's within the cult that like these normal members, like if you look at it when they're all singing and dancing and they're all just having fun, like that's the point of this movie is like, hey, look at this cause. It's less the ideas they're putting forward, but just like the community that they're building within themselves. And I think for that, it treats it with respect instead of going like, look, they all just don't doubt it. And they're all like bumbling fools who don't have a sense of thought. No, they're all broken people in a sense. And it's why Freddy gravitates to it as well.
But it's a cult that's targeting broken people that don't ever change, that don't actually change for the better until they break away from the cult, as you see with Freddy.
But is that treating a cult without respect, or is that just treating a cult as it often is?
Well, I mean, it's not outwardly saying that it's bad, but it's also providing ample evidence that it's not good either.
I would say, I agree.
Also, with the whole thing of like when the Moore guy says like, oh well, when someone with actual cancer thinks she's getting properly healed by this pleasure hypnosis thing, what is she going to do when she's actually going to die of cancer? And then also you see later on when Philip Seymour Hoffman is sitting before he talks to Laura Dern and he coughs really loud, and clearly, I mean, it's not really implicating that he's dying or anything, but you could also take it as like maybe he has some sort of disease that he's not getting proper treatment for because he's too busy eating his own crap, and he's not seeking the proper sort of medical treatment for it.
Is that treating a cult without respect, though? That's a thing. I feel like there's a difference between pointing out a cult's natural flaws and treating
your comparison is they're not bumbling idiots like in the Manson family, but also they're not free thinkers, and the cult itself is targeting damaged people. Like just because they're not like living out in the middle of nowhere with broken teeth, running around their underwear doesn't mean that they're not treating the cultists with respect.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. Like, I feel like just like the use of the word respect is a little like, are they treating cults accurately? I feel like, and that's the answer is yes. But I don't know. Like, Mark, what do you think?
I would say I'm sort of in the middle of the road for the reasons you guys have just flushed it out.
Pick a side.
I pick my side. Just talking about how like
idiot,
people.
Matt.
Yeah, I know. Let's go against Mark.
Hey, what the heck?
Yeah, Matt, let's team up. Let's do this.
I think these people are definitely helping each other out. They're definitely in this great's not the right word, but then this group where they feel like the family, the Society of Family or whatever it's called, that Lancaster Dodd said. And then you see the severe flaws that come with a cult such as this one, with, again, like the leukemia part, and any sort of resistance to the cause or any questioning is like sort of forbidden. And I would say, I don't know, the word respect is a pretty strong word. I think, I don't know how to interpret it. I'd just say Paul Thomas Anderson just shows cults for what they are, for their good and their bad.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to
let's
articulate.
All right,
Cynical
I'm
Matt.
right. Okay, moving on.
No,
God damn it.
wait, is this PTA saying this, or is this just like a lot of reviewers have been like?
PTA said it. He said that he has respect for science. He said if he thinks Scientology is cool or whatever. There's like a Good Morning America interview with him. Yeah.
That,
I don't know.
cult
I think he was just afraid of getting targeted, honestly, because it was on live TV. Like, what is he gonna say, that he hates it or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna come to his house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Look at the
right.
Stanley Kubrick treatment.
Yeah.
Oh God, shut up.
Yeah. We'll talk about that next week. We're doing
on
Guys
next
Why
week?
Shut next week.
We
Oh,
are?
are you recommending that?
Yeah, I thought that was the. We'll talk about that at the end.
Okay.
Okay,
But yeah.
cool.
I have a one question. How'd that guy get in? Like that guy who questions Lancaster Dodd. Why is he there? He's going
You don't
there.
even know why he's there. You
He's
don't
just
even
like
know
he's
why
there. He's like, hey, excuse me. He's like,
I like how like Phillips like how Lancaster won't even like answer him because he's like too afraid of getting called out on.
yeah. He's like, do you actually believe? He's like, and then I just like the if you already know the answer. If you already know the answer, then why'd you ask? Pig fuck. That is. There's a line in this movie that ends with pig fuck. That is probably the best line in the entire movie, and that just shows how well written this movie is.
And it juxtaposes him like they're like what leads me to think that he's just like more of a fraud is that there's so many like heady phrases that he uses that don't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like obviously when he first meets in that first scene with him, where he's like I'm a nuclear physicist and a philosopher and a blah blah blah, but most of all I'm just curious. And it's like
You
all
said
this
I'm just
crap.
a
It's like you don't
man.
have any of these degrees, as we find out later. But also when Bohr is like calling him out and he's like oh, you want to get called out on? He goes and he just says like, oh, what's the world world without a negative or a positive charge? World without negatives and positives would mean the world has no charge. It's like, what does that mean?
Well, no, he said a world without negatives and positives is just two positives, and that's no charge. I'm like, it's actually just two positives. It's like it doesn't.
It's
doesn't
just
make,
yeah,
they don't
they're
cancel themselves out.
non-statements.
Yeah, they're just non-heady statements that like are like the
Yeah.
illusion that he's smart. And then as soon as like he gets a little pressure on him, he starts swearing profusely.
Yeah.
And he starts calling him a pig fuck.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
You also see that in the prison where Freddie calls him out. It's like, you're a fraud, and they just start saying "fuck you" between the bars, and then Philip Seymour Hoffman takes a piss. And it's like, oh, this is great. This movie, I like. Issues. Okay, Mark, you said, is this a perfect movie for you in any regard?
I have one issue with it, and I think I don't like the word issue. But you sort of brought it up, Tyler. It's like just the second half is a little
audio.
more slow.
Yeah, the audio.
It's the audio. The second half is a little more slow. Like the first like hour and a half, I want to say, is like just amazing. And after that is amazing as well, but not as amazing as the first part.
Yeah, I do think the pacing does suffer a little bit, and it's not like because I don't think Boogie Nights or like Magnolia has any pacing issues, but I think there will be
stop. They just don't stop.
Yeah, it's just a constant thing of. But I think like There Will Be Blood and Phantom Thread do, and I think this one does fall into. I can overlook some of the pacing issues because I find this stuff so like entertaining when it's there. That's not like I'm like slogging through. I'm like, is it over? I'm like, okay, it's a little bit slower, but I can't wait to get into the next part. It never like completely takes me out of the movie.
What did you guys think of Freddy when he's in the house and they're doing those experiments with him where he's walking around and he's touching the walls and he goes, "This is just a wall. This is just," and then like, they're trying to get something out of him. But they weren't really, at least from what I could tell, they weren't really clear as to like what they were trying to get out of him or like what their obviously the methods are like pseudosciences, but like I would have liked to know like what their goal was.
I think they're just trying to indoctrinate him. I think they're trying to. I think they're just trying to. Someone who has given a lot of fight, they're trying to break him down to come up with his own pseudo conclusion that like I'll like, oh look, because oftentimes it's just like inner reflection, and that's like we're shown that Freddy does think about like these issues of like he's inconsequential. Do you ever think about your past and like how it impacts you? We're shown that he does think about this stuff, but lacks like until later on in the movie, like lacks the ability to like act on become and like move forward past it. And this one, they're like trying to bring him to that, so he'll think the methods of the cause help me and like indoctrinate him.
I was thinking just randomly that I thought it would have been cool if, because the whole thing about the cult is that you can, when you go into these trances, you can time travel basically into like your old past selves and briefly live different lives. So I was thinking like it would have been kind of funny, or not funny, but interesting if he uses PTSD to like bring him into, like, make him think he's in another world, and then have that draw the conclusion that the psychoanalysis therapy works. Like him suffering from PTSD, like oh, I'm on a beach right now or whatever. It's really just the PTSD, and he's just having flashbacks to being in Japan or whatever. I don't know. I was thinking that would have been kind of cool.
It would be cool, but it go against the whole like that Freddy just doesn't. This stuff does not work with Freddy because his part of the journey is not to be accepted into something; it's to accept himself. And that ultimately would just like fight.
Well, it wasn't like a psychotherapy when we working to be the PTSD that's causing.
That's a good point. But yeah, I don't know. I'm in agreement with Mark. Like any like issues I have, I think it just has some slight pacing stuff. But other than that, I think this is like a great movie. I also just want to throw out this movie cost $32 million to make. Makes sense. Like that's one of like the mid-tier movies. $28 million box office worldwide. No one saw this movie, and it's a shame because these are the type of
Roger Ebert gave it only 2.5 stars.
Did he?
Yeah, he said that.
What?
Yeah.
Hold on. We should look this up before we're not being professional.
It's Blue Velvet all over again.
I know.
He said like in the first line is like I reach out.
He gave it 2.5.
Grasp air.
Bastard.
What?
My hand closes on air. Ugh. He asks, he's like the performances are otherworldly.
I read the whole review. It's like, yeah, everything is like really great, but like it doesn't level. It's like kind of like with me. I think the movie's way better than 2.5 stars. Just to clarify, but like it's like I think he was just looking for like another level up on its. But he's like I'm not really sure.
Well, that's a comic complaint. That's
what we felt on the first viewing.
Yeah,
well, that's
all we felt. Well, not.
You need to see it twice.
Yeah.
That's a common complaint of the movie is people are like, what's the point of this? And I feel like I was like, the point is it's Freddy accepting himself. And the cult is just that backdrop to be like, this is what Freddy thinks he's looking for, but in actuality he's not, and we get that realization towards the end. I don't know. I think this movie like connects, like I don't have any like loose threads where I'm like, what was the point of that?
Yeah. I would say that this movie handles the personal drama with the cult drama way better than Midsommar did.
Oh, hot take, damn. Because Midsommar
is like, too. I think Midsommar has a lot of flaws.
Midsommar is very interesting, but yeah, it's
interesting. Yeah.
Well, but while we've already been talking about basically the entire time, but let's get into homework scenes. Yeah. We can nominate a few. I have mine. Mark, let's go with yours. Do you want to give like a couple, and then we can kind of narrow it down?
Sure. I would say. I'm trying to figure out which one's my favorite. It's like I think it's a tie between the first sort of interrogation scene with Lancaster Dodd and Joaquin Phoenix. You know, the one that we've talked about sort of at length in this review already. That scene, I loved the window to the wall.
Yeah.
I just realized that was
good
the
job.
John song.
I'm so proud of you.
That scene, it's like what's the point? But like it just keeps going, and you realize like it's kind of funny. He's like, it's the same wall here,
and he like runs into that thing, and they're like, move it, I'm like, get that thing away from him.
And I like when it first starts. Lancaster Dodd's like, okay, Freddy, go to the window now. Tell me what you feel. And he goes, he touches. He's like, I feel glass. And he's like, that's because it's glass. And he laughed. I think that was actually like Philip Seymour Hoffman laughing at the absurdity of it.
Yeah.
Paul Thomas Anderson just kept it. That scene. The close-up scene between Peggy and Freddy, the scene where the pig fuck scene, and the scene where he drives off into the distance, and then the final scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked all your scenes are my favorite scenes, but I really like the shot where when it gets on to the boat and it's going down the river, the Panama Canal, and you have like the sunset in the background as it's drifting along. I just really like that scene.
Mm.
I'm pretty on record by saying that first in the questioning interrogation scene from Philip Seymour Hoffman and Joaquin Phoenix is just like it's just something else for me. I think it overshadows this entire movie, if I'm being honest. I think the pig fuck scene is pretty great. Not actually fucking a pig, but the pig fuck scene.
I just like that in his spare time.
Yeah. Hey, I'm not Black Mirror season 1 episode 1.
I was about to say Black Mirror.
Yeah, I was about Black Mirror season 1.
Yeah, the Prime Minister of England.
That's a great episode. And then has to be that like that after when he gets arrested and they're all just like he's like I'm fine. He's like, and they're all like woo sit, and they're like fawning after him. And then he goes there, and then they have that argument. Joaquin Phoenix is like a trapped dog trying to escape. He breaks like the toilet, and he's just flailing. I think that's great. If we're gonna nominate one, what should we be? What should it be? I go for the first interrogation scene, first questioning, whatever interrogation.
I go over Philip Seymour Hoffman riding a bike.
Yeah, I have to nominate the window and wall scene.
Window and wall. You know what?
Really
this movie.
Why do we do these we're never
because
gonna agree on it.
Because
it's such a stupid part. Okay, well, let's go to Mark sleep time moments.
Matt, you're so mean.
We're never gonna pick one. So
Matt, you're so mean. Mark, your sleepy
I
time
think
moment.
Tyler's like up at night. He's like, man, I gotta contribute like good ideas to the podcast. It's like, how about like we all just like argue pointlessly about what our favorite scene is, even though we all have different opinions.
You're so mean to me. You're such a bully. You're so mean to me. This is what I have to deal with, everyone. This is like constant when the cameras aren't rolling. It's even worse. Mark's sleepy time moment. This is the originator. This inspired it. The master. Yeah. Mark falls asleep while watching The Master. Wakes up, 5 stars, claps, all that whole 9 yards.
And then
stuff.
when you ask him what he thought of it, he says, I thought it was pretty good. And the second time you ask him, he says, it was a little boring. And the third time you ask him, he said, I fell asleep.
Yeah. It's a constant like, oh, okay. It's like the questioning scene where he's like,
exactly.
Oh my god, man, we figured it out. Mark's sleepy time. It's basically our low points of the movie.
Mark's like plotting his revenge right now.
I want to nominate everything with Rami Malek in this movie. I don't like any scenes he in. I don't think he's good in this movie. I think he stands out. I don't like it's like weird, and that me viewing it from like a post Bohemian Rhapsody, but he kind of stands out. He's like, Dad, at the dinner, he's like, I don't think Freddie is committed to the cause as much.
I think you have a problem with the character.
I think I have a problem with Rami Malek. I don't think he's a great actor, if I'm being honest.
We have to watch Mr. Robot.
I have to finish Mr. Robot.
Yeah, you haven't watched that one episode in season 5.
4.
when he's season 4 when he's in the psychologist's room.
Okay, well, okay. I'll watch that eventually, but I don't know. Like every time he's on the screen, I just kind of like I look at it and like he's being cheated on by his wife, and then it's weird. And then he's that one questioning scene where he's like, Doris, you're a fucking loser, Doris. And then it's just like it just feels very weird to me, and I wasn't a big fan of it.
Completely disagree.
Okay,
yeah, you're wrong.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
all right, what's your guys?
Objectively wrong.
I'm objectively wrong. What's your low point scenes, guys?
I don't really have like a specific low point
scene. Yeah.
Okay, well that means I win by default. Awesome. Thank you guys. Thank you.
There wasn't a contest.
It was. Yes, it was to me. Everything's a contest. Grades. We grade stuff on an A, B, C, D, F scale. No plus or minuses, even though Matt actively hates it, and we all hate it.
I don't hate it. I just like to make fun of you for it.
Yeah, I have so much fun.
I'm the biggest
with
proponent of keeping it, actually.
Are you really? Okay, well, we're keeping it. Thank you, Matt. I have that on record.
Take shots at you.
Mark, what are you going to give The Master?
I'm going to give it an A. Unequivocal A.
Unequivocal A. Matt.
This is like the highest B I can possibly
give. Damn it. No! We haven't given to it. Nothing's been in the Hall of Fame since Old Boy.
I just can't.
You can't bring it. You can't do it.
I can't. Like, it's almost there, literally. But, like, an A is an A. An A, like, I understand, obviously you guys, like, we've all been praising it to the high heavens, and you guys obviously praise it a little more than I do. But it's so close. It's so close.
So you're telling me Dredd is a better movie?
Yes.
Damn. I'm also going to give it an A.
Dredd has more insights on the like how criminology and race-class relationships work. So, yeah.
Damn, we got you there, Mark. I'm going to give this movie an A.
Mark's like,
God damn it. Yeah, I'm going to give this one an A. A, all A's. All A's. This is my favorite PTA movie. But saying my favorite PTA movie, like, my least favorite one's Punch Drunk Love, and I gave that 4 stars, and I gave it a B. I mean, like, that's like his lowest, so it's whatever. It's an A. Matt, you're wrong. Objectively wrong, too.
I'd just like to point out that Matt's denied us 2 Hall of Fames in the past month with North by Northwest and now this.
Oh, that's a good
Well,
point.
I didn't like the I'm
No,
sorry.
no. I don't want to hear your excuses.
Tyler give Bill Sprout to the Vampire C.
Yeah,
It's true. That's
I
true.
just
The
did-
audio
Too.
is bad. Like a B is like such a high grade. And
I
it's-
gave
it's-
Aquaman a B. Aquaman's a B for me. So
yeah,
that my
so-
B and your B are completely different standards now.
Yeah. A B, no, Mark, don't worry. A B for me is not a B for Tyler. A B for me is like a super great movie.
Yeah. Fair
It's
enough.
also
Alright,
not
you earned
Dune.
it.
He also gave Dune a B. So
All right. Well,
It's
before
earned
we
it.
start throwing punches over the screen,
I
what we've been
I
watching.
gave it 4 stars on Letterboxd, so like I really couldn't back out of it at that point.
Yeah. All right. What we've been watching. Where we just kind of talk about what we've been watching in the last week. Mark, I think you might have the least amount of stuff. I don't know what you
I have 3.
You have 3. Go for it. Tell us what you've been watching.
First one I watched was There Will Be Blood. Second time watching. First time being like 6 years ago. I see a lot of people sort of like just basically, when I say a lot of people, I mean Reddit. They circle jerk over this movie.
I read it.
Yeah, Why Mess That was his favorite movie of like 2007 or something.
Damn.
2007, that kind of makes sense. I don't know. It's like maybe we were talking about like the hard connecting with PTA movies, and you're not really supposed to connect with this movie because Daniel Plainview is, a despicable character. But I don't know. It's just I feel like it's like this movie's like incredible, but it's like nowhere near his best. It's hard for me to articulate. I'm sure you guys sort of feel the same way, maybe.
Yeah,
it's difficult to pinpoint it.
It's not that difficult for me.
It's because like because I mean Daniel Plainview is such an unlikable character, and it's like not really rooting for him.
Well, I think that's the point.
That's the point, but also kind of I think that's where some of the detachment probably comes from, like what Mark was saying. And I think it gets a little overacted at the end. I'm just gonna throw it out there. That's a pretty big hot take.
Yeah. So for me, I think it has legitimate pacing issues. I think the second half is slow and boring, and I don't find it interesting. I also think the most interesting part of the movie is the battle between Paul Dano and Daniel Plainview or whatever. Yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis, and there is a disgusting lack of it because he disappears from the movie for a large portion, and because of that, the movie becomes horribly less interesting. Then again, I gave this movie 4 stars. It's my fifth
your
favorite.
father just tries to appeal to the masses.
Yes, but no, this movie
at.
is like a base level of excellency. But no, I think it has like legitimate issues. It's on the same tier for me with the other PTA movies because there's 2 tier of PTA, and it's man, I'm just ignoring you. It's this top 4, which I think
I
are
wasn't
like
saying anything.
shut up. Is like his top 4, which are like excellent, and then his bottom 4, which are great, and that's PTA. Like, I mean, you can't really beat that. So,
what do you think of Inherent Vice? Like, would you think Inherent Vice is better than Early Blood or worse?
it's worse. But I gave it a B. I gave it 4 stars. It's just slightly.
That's we have different B standards.
Yeah. Inherent Vice is solid. I think it's really fun, but I think it'll take me a rewatch to really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Mark, you watched There Will Be Blood. What else?
The next movie I watched was Steve Jobs, which I really did not like.
Yeah.
I like to consider myself like pretty well acclimated with like, Apple products and and technology. Like I know like when they talk about technology, I understand what they're talking about, but like, I mean like in a general sense, but in this movie, half the time I was like, what the hell are they talking about? I was going in ready to love this. I was like, Aaron Sorkin wrote this. It's about Steve Jobs and it's Michael Fassbender and he's amazing. Like, and I was ready to be blown away, and it just didn't captivate me, except for like some brilliant scenes. Like the first scene's amazing. Turn off the fire alarm signs.
Yep.
Oh, we can't do that. I'll pay whatever the fine is. We're
Yeah.
changing the world in here. And I like the Jeff Daniels scene with like Fassbender with the cutback to the past, and I thought it was sort of like a wow factor. Like, oh, this is cool. This is editing. But it was also like still cool to see.
Did you hate the ending? Did you hate the ending as much as I did? The ending to Steve Jobs is one of my least favorite endings I've seen in a long time in a movie.
It was definitely a cop out.
It's a horrible cop out because they set this entire thing up setting up how bad of a person Steve Jobs is, and at the end he's like, "I love you, daughter," and that's it. And it's like 3 minutes tacked on, and it's emotional bullshit. Aaron Sorkin does this in all of his fucking movies, where he tacks on this emotional like, bleh, and it just takes all the wind out of the sail of the movie. He does it in A Few Good Men. He does it in Molly's Game. He does it in fucking Trials of Chicago. He does it in all his movies, and it's bullshit. Order. And then everyone's clapping, and then
this is a movie.
Yeah, like this is we're just celebrating the movie.
In case you weren't aware.
Yeah.
Wait, what did Seth Rogen say? Withdrawal. I was thinking, which Joaquin Phoenix's character's from Massachusetts.
In Massachusetts, yeah.
Yeah, he had a pretty good like northeastern accent.
I like how Matt's the residential like Massachusetts accent.
Dictator, yeah.
Critic.
When someone says withdrawal, I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should email him. Let him know.
Yeah, what else about Steve Jobs, Mark? Besides the bullshit ending.
Yeah, the ending was bullshit. I like how he's like, I'm going to put an iPod. I mean, he doesn't say this, but it's funny. It's like, I'm going to put an iPod in your pocket. It's like, what's an iPod?
It's like, shut up. He's like, you see that Walkman? I'm going to put it so there's hundreds of songs, something even smaller. You're like, shut up. Steve Jobs is not a good person in real life, and I don't know why they shunned away from that so much. He's like a horrible human being. It doesn't like, the movie pissed me off a lot. Like that ending really like, poof, just brought it down for me a little bit.
Yeah. So
what else did you watch?
It's a low C for me, but I watched. I'm sure you're excited for me to talk about this. In the Mood for Love by Wong Kar-wai. This is on the Criterion Channel. It's the second Wong Kar-wai movie I've seen. The other one being Chungking Express. I won't go too much detail because I know you haven't seen his movies yet, Matt. I'm interested to see what you think of them when you hopefully eventually see them. Tyler, you're pretty on record with loving this movie. I don't know. A lot of people hold this up as like a masterpiece, and I like completely understand that. And
this is Tyler, and this is Mark slam dunking on him.
I'm writing down your infringements against me.
I don't. Okay, I don't really have a particularly good criticism of this movie because there's like a lot of this movie is like just incredible on so many levels, and it just didn't give me that resounding oomph that I wanted. I was just like with Steve Jobs, I was ready to go in to love this thing. I've heard so much about it, and there are definitely scenes and sequences that my jaw sort of dropped. Like I think the one like like this throughout the movie, those scenes where the music's playing and it's like slow motion. Tyler.
Yeah, I know.
The first sequence came, I was like, oh shit, this is something.
Thank you. Bless me. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd have to rewatch it. It's very subtle.
You say bless me, thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't even hear that. I just ignore him.
And Mark just tuned me out. Yeah. Mark, keep going. Yeah, this movie, In Mood for Love, is phenomenal. It's one of the best examples of visual storytelling I've seen in a long time. I can't there's one shot that shows the characters' current emotional state with each other through their hands. Where she's wearing her I'm not gonna spoil. But it's just like you just see like the placement of the hands in the shot shows you're supposed to be focusing on them, and from that you get a sense like I see where they are now, and it never tells you, and then it's so great, so great. Yeah, and you're wrong for not giving it you're wrong for not giving it like you're just wrong, objectively wrong. Can't do it. On Reddit Criterion, they did a poll, and this was their number 7 best movie of the 2000s of the century, 21st century. Number 7.
Is the first one Mulholland Drive?
I probably, honestly.
Yeah, because a lot of people say it's like the best movie of since 2000, and it came out in 2001. But anyway, that's the movies I watched.
Matt, what did you watch?
I watched one movie.
Only one, really?
Other than The Master.
Okay.
Downfall.
Yes.
Go. Okay. Matt owns a copy of Mein Kampf, by the way.
And the Communist Manifesto.
Yes, yeah, and that, and the Egyptian Book of the Dead. And so I'm gonna talk about this movie more for my October recommendations, but just to keep it brief, this movie is utterly painful. Nothing with this and with Babylon Berlin, German retrospective in with the whole Nazi thing. is like really fascinating and depressing and shameful, and it's really, 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 really dramatic and really, really emotional. I want to recommend this movie at some point, but I just don't really want to watch it again because
Is that serious?
it's so like you should like it's honestly probably one of the most important movies you could probably ever watch. It's
Really?
Geez,
really phenomenal.
Wow.
It humanizes these horrible human beings without making them sympathetic. That's what I said in my Letterboxd review. It brings like Hitler, Goebbels, Himmler, Heinrich Himmler, and those people. Like it's like a more like realistic, setting. Obviously, instead of like a human history book, but they make sure to obviously not make them sympathetic because they're horrible people. But there's like this one. I'll talk about this one great scene. Because spoiler alert: Hitler dies at the end, in case you weren't aware.
What?
So like there's this really great scene where after he commits suicide, I don't show it, but there's a scene where the people bring him and Eva Braun's bodies out. It's like this ditch outside and bombs are falling everywhere because this is during the time where Russia's Soviet Union is bombing the hell out of Berlin, and they just throw the bodies in like this muddy ditch and set them on fire, and it's so unceremonious and it's so like perfect juxtaposed to like how deified these people were in German culture at the time. But I'll talk about them more for my recommendations, but I think this movie is extremely important, especially with how certain political figures in today's American politics are sort of deified and can be seen as can do nothing wrong. This movie is incredibly important to of the importance of not having unflinching loyalties to someone who doesn't really care if you live or die or not, and it's really, really powerful. And I'll talk about it more later on, but it's just like I can't even really explain it. It's just an incredible like exploration of like human psyche, and like a political like a horribly hopeless political atmosphere where people are willing to die for this man who does not care about them at all.
What was the reason you decided to watch this? This is just kind of
So like I'll just throw it out there. I have a completely objective fascination with the man.
He's an interesting
you
figure.
have like the Caesars
Yeah.
and the Alexander the Greats who are conquerors in their own rights, but they
Napoleon.
were born into greatness to a certain extent. Hitler was a failed artist in Prussia, and I just find like his life story to be completely fascinating and how he was able to basically wrap Germany around his fingers, and as you've seen in Downfall, literally kill themselves for this hopeless goal of fighting off the Russians, which is never going to happen. But they're so blind to the man's words that they're just willing to do it anyways. And that's like I've wanted to watch it for a very long time, and it lived up to everything I thought it was going to be. Like if honestly we did a review on this movie, we could probably talk about it for 3 hours straight. It's
damn.
Wow.
Is it on Amazon Prime?
yeah, it's for an Amazon Prime.
I'll have to bite the bullet.
How long is it?
Yeah,
It's 2.5 hours, but it feels its length,
That's
but it's
reasonable.
also like obviously it's so well done that it doesn't feel its length at the same time. That makes any sense. But it follows different characters throughout the whole like final stages of the siege of Berlin, and it's just incredible. I hope maybe if you guys watch before we do our recommendations for November, if we can talk about it more. But it's like honestly, I'm speechless by it.
Damn, you're not normally like that grasped by
It
movies.
ended and like there's a couple scenes where it's shot so dispassionately, and that just elevates the scenes because it just feels like I can compare it to Park Chan-wook, like in Old Boy or in Mr. Vengeance. You just have to feel like you're watching something you're not supposed to be seeing.
Yeah.
And that's like throughout this whole movie. That's like the best way I can explain it.
Cool.
You've sold me on it. I really got to check this out.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be able to sell you guys a movie this well, but I watched 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it's not a lot for me. It's only been a week. But I watched a movie in 1976, All the President's Men, that I think you guys would really like. Matt, you weren't the biggest fan of Spotlight. You thought it was okay. And what I think my issues with Spotlight is Spotlight lacks a lot of subtlety, and it really holds the viewers.
names.
They knew. But what's really great about All the President's Men is it's about Watergate. It's about the journalist Woodward and Bernstein, Feldstein, whoever Woodward and whatever.
I can't remember the name.
Who broke Watergate. And what is great about this movie is it treats its audience with respect and intelligence. It never explains like each individual point, but rather when the characters make the revelations, they don't go, oh my God, this person did this. You're figuring it out with them, and I think that's really respectable. I think this movie it kind of just ends without really understanding the ramifications of the story. And I have an issue. It's an issue and it's not an issue because the movie's about the journalism, not the story. That makes sense, but it's such an impactful story because it got Nixon to resign from the presidency that it ultimately, like, you feel like you have to know, like, you have to see that he, like, what happened, like, this went all the way up. Matt, I mean, you guys saw Spotlight. You guys thought Spotlight was fine. I really think you guys would like this movie. I don't think you'd, like, love it. It's nowhere close to being, like, a downfall for you, Matt. But I think you'd watch this and go, this was a much better version of Spotlight.
Yeah.
What made you want to watch it?
I watched Spotlight and was like, I wrote another really good journalism movie. And this one was the one that was constantly
Wait, I've
coming
seen
up.
this movie.
All the President's Men with Robert Redford and not Paul Newman, Dustin Hoffman.
Yes.
And they're
I went
breaking
for my journalism class.
You did? And what'd you think of it?
It was good. I liked it.
It's a good movie. Like,
yeah, it's solid.
They're breaking like this is what Deep Throat.
Deep Throat.
Deep Throat. This is where like that comes from.
Yeah.
And they're like, can Deep Throat be trusted? And that's great. It's like it's a really great movie. And then I watched Akira the Wrath of God. A Werner Herzog. I'm pretty on record by not liking Nosferatu the Vampire. I fucking loved Akira the Wrath of God. I could not.
You liked it more than I did.
I liked it I think, more
me
than
too.
any of you guys. This movie's so fascinating. I love. It's basically like you guys were describing this as like Apocalypse Now, except it came out before Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, 7 years.
Yeah,
ago.
we know.
So like, I love the style of this movie. It just feels like a documentary of these people just slowly going insane. I just like. It took me a few minutes to get into the style where they're kind of like it's that they're going down the mountains.
Oh my God, that shot is amazing.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, but I was like, what's this? It's like, is this a documentary? And I had to check to make sure. I was like, what is this? How are they making a documentary about the Spanish, like, 1600s? Like, doesn't make any sense. There weren't cameras. I was like, I'm an idiot.
Were there?
I was like, wait a second. When there were movies invented? No. I thought this was, like, wonderfully shot and claustrophobic, and I love this sense of death is just of madness and how death is inescapable. And no matter what, they're sailing down the river into just like a descent into madness. And it's so well done. And I love how just like people just slowly start either going insane or dying. And Klaus Kaczynski, who I looked him up, he is a horrible human being.
Yeah, I remember I mentioned that.
I had no idea what he did, but he is a horrible human being. He is such a great actor. Watching him like just like slowly go insane but maintain this like sense of superiority over his men is astounding. The one shot of that woman just walking into the woods and disappearing is just like, it's so haunting. It's just, like, because she's walking into the area where there are Indians like just killing the people there, and she walks into her death knowing that she's gonna die, and you're just like, this is
Native Americans.
Native Americans, sorry. Wait, no, because they're in Spain. South America. Are they? I don't know.
What?
Wait, I don't know the name. I don't know the official like name of
Incas, Aztecs,
yeah, whatever it is. But basically, like that shot where they walk in, I love just like the.
I don't know what their names are. So I'm gonna call them by the name of the people of a country that's on the opposite side of the world.
Shut up! No, not whatever.
Cancel.
Okay, fine. Canceled. Native Americans.
Not those Indians.
Shut up. I loved every single thing about this. There's just like Matt, you said it's filmed so. How do you describe Downfall? It's filmed so like dispassionately that just like people are just like dying and being picked off. Like they're one of my favorite shots in the movie is the guy they enact to be the leader of
and then he dies.
And he's just writing. He's like, and I declare. And he's just like pointing, and he's like, "This is all mine. This is all mine. We're already the biggest country in the entire world." And then he just gets out of a toilet, and the next shot you see him, he's dead. And you're like, "This is the best." It's short, which I loved. It's an hour and a half, but just like watching like things slowly start to kill them, and then just go insane. It's
like
just
when the weeds like the vines come and like grab people.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like I was like, I get it. I get why you love Werner Herzog. And then I kept on going on the Criterion subreddit, and every hour there was a post about how great Herzog is, and I felt like I was going insane. This movie's amazing. I had no issues with it whatsoever. I would absolutely like rewatch this like anytime. That's how much I just loved it. then I watched Network. Mark, you have been hitting home this movie time and time again, and it's really great. I don't think I love it as much as you do, but it's still like I watched it on the night of the election, which was I was like, I'm gonna watch a movie like to get away from the election. And Mark, you're like, it's not gonna help you get away from the election. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And I watched it, and it's like one of my favorite, like right away. This isn't a spoiler, but the guy, what's it called? Howard Beale is like, I'm gonna kill myself, and immediately everyone's just like, how do we get out of this situation? Not is Howard Beale okay? It was like, this is the type of movie that I'm in. I'm like, okay, that's good. Like no one checks on Howard Beale except for the one guy who gets fired.
They want to exploit him for
they want to
views.
exploit him for views. And Faye Dunaway is this wonderful amalgamation of like contemporary media.
Oh my god!
She is so.
Let's not get too much. Let's not get too much into it for Matt because I want to be going blind.
Yeah, it's like this is my first experience with Sidney Lumet, and now I just like he is such a wonderful director. Just clearly off of this, it's amazing. It's a really really great movie.
So. Well, for one, I think of the first time I watched Network, I was like, that was really good. That was my reaction. I was like, this is a great movie. Then I watched it again, and it blew my fucking socks off.
Yeah. I also was probably not the best. Like, I was distracted by the election. So if I watch this again without, like, this going on, I'll probably be more into it and probably like it more. That's kind of – I'll probably do the same thing what you did.
Yeah, because, like, for me, the first time I watched it was earlier this year. And then I think like 5 or 6 months went by, and in that time frame, I'd read like a lot of political books.
Yeah.
And my ideas on many things had changed. And so when I came back to the movie and I saw it, it just was like, oh my god, this is what I've been reading about for so long, and it was just holy crap. And it's like for me, it's by no means the best movie I've ever seen, but like holy shit, it's like one of my like top 3 for sure.
Yeah.
And also just on the topic of Sidney Lumet, he is not a director that draws attention to himself. And I've
never heard of him before I started getting really into movies. Like, and he's
not a household name.
Yeah, he's one of the most acclaimed directors. If you actually look at what he's done, you're like, I've heard of that movie. I heard of that movie, and you kind of go through it. Oh, damn.
He directs really solid movies, and I think his directing sort of genius comes out when you just like I've rewatched Network scenes from Network so many times. There's all these monologues I just love, and I just watch them over and over again. And after watching them so many times, I'm like paying attention to so many different aspects, and just the directing is amazing. And what I love it when in movies like sort of like Apocalypse Now, it's just like you get a scene where like not like the main character, but a character's idea of like reality is sort of shattered.
Yep.
And that happens in that one scene when the curtains go down, and I
great.
I can't even articulate it. It's written by Patty Chayefsky. What a genius screenplay. What a screenplay.
It's wonderful.
And I'd like to mention that Peter Finch, who played Howard Beale, is the first person to win a Oscar posthumously. The second being Joaquin.
He died after the movie came out?
Yep. No, before it came out. And he won the Oscar.
Damn. Yeah, he's wonderful. Yeah. I think, like, the thing is, though, some of my complaints with the movie, I think might be purposeful by the movie. Like, there's this, like, no sense of, like, time passed in this movie. Like, you don't really get a sense of when things are happening, but you find that, like, 6 months had passed. And that's a real issue but the thing is, though, is that a commentary on how fast the media works? Like, that things kind of, like, go by and how irrelevant they are. It's, like, a really, like, you could get, like, really meta with it. But I think I just had some issues with the movie.
What is this movie on?
It's, I rented it through Amazon. Lord and Savior Amazon.
I own it.
Yeah, but it's one of those things Mark you've been recommending for a while, and I was like, I'm finally going to do it. It's 2 hours. So I watched Network, and then what else did I watch? I watched There Will Be Blood. We've already talked about that.
Yeah.
And then I watched Pulp Fiction. Finally.
Give us the objective review. Finally, we'll know.
I gotta be honest.
Review.
I've only gotten to the point after he quotes Ezekiel and blah blah blah, and then kills that guy, and it's like the iconic like first lead up from the first like diner thing and stuff like that. When I'm not gonna spoil Pulp Fiction. If you haven't seen it like me, you're an idiot like me. When the GIMP, when they go in the back and like pull out a GIMP, I was like, what the fuck is
Where's
this
the GIMP?
movie?
GIMP sleeping.
him sleeping. Yeah, and then they're basically like, and then Marcellus Wallace is raped, and I was like, what the fuck is this movie?
Oh
Because
yeah.
it comes out of like left field, but that's kind of like what's great about it. It's Pulp Fiction. I mean, nothing I could say about it has ever been said. It's
The scene, my favorite scene when I first saw the movie was when Bruce, like when I was like really into it, was when Bruce Willis is about to leave them
Yeah.
all behind, and
Yeah.
he stops
Yeah.
and looks at, and he like keeps picking up each weapon,
And
and
the
finally
hammer.
gets the katana.
yeah,
Like that's like when I first saw it, I was like, this movie is incredible. When I first saw it, like 10 years ago.
yeah, 10 years ago. I saw it. I finally watched it.
It's like 8 years ago.
But it's great. It's one of those things though where I don't. I basically said in my letterbox, I'm like, my hot take is it's not Tarantino's best, and it's not my favorite Tarantino.
Disagree.
But that's comparing.
Disagree.
But I said that's me comparing like
Shut
a
up.
97 to
Shut
a
your mouth.
95.
No one cares.
My favorite's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
But still, shut your mouth, Pulp Fiction.
Okay.
Favorite is
fine.
Reservoir Dogs.
I can't it was one of those things where like I don't. Why did he do a nonlinear structure? I'm not asking this as a complaint, but do we know why he did a nonlinear narrative?
That's like what Pulp Fiction is.
Is it? Okay. I wasn't
Yeah.
sure on that because I was looking it up after and I couldn't find why he did it, but thank you because that was one of the things I was like, why is he doing it like
I guess
this?
Tyler giving it a C because he was like, they didn't know how to edit the movie the right way. It's not out of order.
That's
I
not
don't know
true.
John Travolta dies. Why do I care what happens?
I wasn't sure what the time frame was.
Yeah, the audio was bad for 5 minutes. I could focus on anything else.
I'm never gonna live that down, am I? That's like a film.
And I'm right because I
process.
saw one Reddit comment. Totally wasn't me who wrote it. Said the
Oh,
audio
yeah,
was bad.
don't forget. He's gonna say there's pacing issues as well.
Oh yeah, pacing issues too.
There's not
Tyler
pacing issues.
destroyed.
Yeah, Tyler wrecked.
You just got my entire essence of who I am as a movie fan. I love little lines where like
He really
Tim-
could have taken more cinematic advice from the guys who made the Marine. I think.
Yeah, when he throws the lady out of the bus into another bus, it's great. No, one of my favorite lines in like movies is when you go like, I didn't hear you, but he's like, yeah, you did. Like those kind of lines where it's like, did I stutter? It's like, what you say? Did I stutter? It's like, oh, that's great. When Sam Jackson
What?
is just
They speak English and what?
Yeah.
What?
But it's one of those movies like I want to rewatch it now. Like I want to go back and watch it again. And it's not like it's not like There Will Be Blood where I have no desire to rewatch There Will Be Blood anytime soon. I can watch Pulp Fiction tonight and have just as much fun. That dance sequence is when they're doing the little twist thing. Great. When she ODs, when Uma Thurman ODs, and you just like it's all great. But yeah, the gimp rape.
Did you know it was going to happen in the movie before you saw it?
The what?
Do you know what was
The
going to
gimp
happen in
scene?
the movie?
No, like I legitimately did not
Alright.
know anything about the movie after that first like
Oh.
Sam Jackson like monologue. And then I didn't know what happened. And then everything else was a surprise. I have somehow managed to live 22 years
I'm
on this
surprised.
planet without knowing there was a gimp rape sequence in this movie, which is really
And that's
great.
because it's you. Like, that's
No.
like the faith.
No, you're the sick movie pervert. That's not me.
What?
There was that because you
He's
love
gonna,
this
he's gonna go
movie.
watch Caligula again now.
Yeah, go watch Caligula. You freaking weirdo.
Oh, I like this is a good movie.
All
not
right,
good.
that's
It's okay.
we're gonna double back. Matt, what's our call to action? What are we
Maybe
doing?
the call to action begin the movie.
We'll do it again, anyways.
I'll say what we're going to want to watch next time. We're going to
Yeah,
do
what are we
Eyes Wide
watching?
Shut.
Wait, what are we watching next weekend?
Eyes Wide Shut.
Oh, are we? Is that what we're doing?
It's your recommendation.
Is it? Oh, it is my recommendation.
I like it when Tyler tries to take command, and then as soon as you call, like, as soon as you question him about anything, he goes,
You know what? I don't know what we're gonna watch next week because I'll think about it.
So
I'll
you're
give it a
going to
day.
your Eyes Wide Shut.
We'll see. I'll figure it out. You know what? How
He's going to
about that?
recommend Black Hat. It's going to be like, it's really good.
No, because I'm not gonna recommend Black Hat because that's gonna be my third movie in my Michael Mann director series.
We'll get to that in like 2 years.
We are gonna get to that in a while. I might
Can I take a really random note about Paul Thomas Anderson?
go for it.
So during an interview for The Master, like the interviewer was like, "Oh, so we know that you really are critical of film school. If you were to like be in charge of film school, like what?" He said like, "Oh, you think that commentary on movies will get you way more information on films than going to any film school." He said, "What audio commentaries would you have your students listen to if you were in charge of film school?" And he went, because this is 2012. He goes, "Oh man, Ted was so good."
Does it really?
Yeah, he's like, "I'll do Ted."
Oh my god! So we know that Paul Thomas Anderson loves Ted.
Yeah, at least in 2012 he did.
Can we trust this hack anymore? Ted's not a good movie.
It's good. It's funny.
No, it's not.
I'm pretty sure there's like stories of like PTA and Quentin Tarantino like pulling all-nighters and snorting cocaine.
Yeah, they probably all do cocaine. Cocaine's such like an accessible drug.
Oh, I forgot to mention.
Don't ask me how I know that.
On the
No one's gonna ask.
No one's gonna get to this far in the episode.
on the A24 podcast, when Uncut Gems came out, PTA and the Safdie brothers did an episode together, and Paul Thomas Anderson was like just talking about like what he's been up to, and he visited the set of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood when they were filming.
Yeah.
And he said when he went on, like Quentin Tarantino came up to him and was like, "Hey man, what are you doing here? What's going on?" You know, as if like Paul Thomas Anderson was like trying to like steal his ideas. And so PTA was just like reminiscing about that fact because like him and Tarantino are close, and like Tarantino got so defensive the second PTA showed up.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
great. All right, guys, thank you for watching. Yeah, our call to action is the beginning, but next week we'll do either Eyes Wide Shut or another movie I think of. I might make you guys watch Black Cat. I kind of want to watch Black Cat again. I'm gonna make you guys watch Black Cat. I think we're gonna watch Black Cat. Thank you for putting that idea in my head, Matt.
I fucking hate you, Matt, just so you know.
Yeah.
That's why I hate you,
It's shorter.
It's a little over 2 hours. I might make you guys watch Heat now, which is 3 hours.
Oh god.
They get to
Okay,
watch,
if we watch Heat, I have a YouTube link to it. I found the whole movie on YouTube.
All right, next week we're doing Black Hat. I'm making it official. We're doing Black Hat. I love Black Hat.
I roast the crap out of it. I'm gonna give it an F already. I already know.
You haven't seen it yet. Oh, I can't wait. Okay, guys. Thank you guys for watching, and I get to find